5.
Now, the Coalition is slamming the government's plan to roll out an advertising campaign to sell the carbon tax now that it has passed the Senate. And the opposition maintains that repealing the tax will still be one of its first orders of business if it wins office at the next election. Greg Hunt is the opposition spokesman for Climate Action, and he joins us now from Mount Martha, which is just outside his Melbourne electorate. Greg Hunt, good morning, and thanks so much for joining us.
Good morning, Virginia, and we've got some strong weather in the background.
Yes,
just to give you a feel for the peninsula.
I can see that. In fact, we've got that stormy weather almost right around the country. If the lightning bolts start, then I won't mind if you bolt for a safer position as well.
We'll work through it.
Greg Hunt, I know the opposition is complaining loudly about this advertising campaign, but if any government having passed such a massive piece of legislation and a huge change to the economy, comparable, of course, to when the GST was introduced, and if it didn't then go about trying to explain that policy, you'd equally have an argument of complaint, wouldn't you?
No, I wouldn't. This is naked partisan political advertising. We've already had $24 million spent, and now we're about to see another round of taxpayer-funded advertising. This is money which will come from people who will also have to pay the tax. So it's a double whammy for families. They get hit with the tax, which the Prime Minister promised would never happen, and then they have to pay for the advertising. It's partisan advertising. The ads have not been accurate. They have been misleading. They haven't talked about price rises for electricity, gas or groceries. They haven't talked about spending $3.5 billion on foreign carbon credits on top of the carbon tax. They haven't talked about the impact on jobs and investment. So the ads are not accurate, they're paid for by taxpayers, and we want the Prime Minister to rule out a new wave of ads by midday today.
Well, I doubt that she will, or at least the government doesn't seem to. In the meantime, you'd appear to be in a tough position now. In a sense, you almost need parts of the economy to collapse in order to make your point about how bad this tax is. But whoever wants to be in the position of desiring that. So I'm just wondering how that dilemma makes you feel right now.
We actually want to seek a mandate. We want to take the plan to repeal the carbon tax to an election. That's the right thing to do. It's the opposite of what the Prime Minister did and the Treasurer did in the lead up to the last election. If we win a mandate, we'll repeal the tax. The reason being is it's an economic failure and it's an environmental failure. Emissions in Australia go up by 43 million tonnes. In the end, we have to purchase 100 million tonnes of foreign carbon credits from 2020 onwards. Each year, every year, that goes up. Right now, Greg Combet is doing interviews denying that there is this enormous overseas purchase of credits. On the 7:30 program last night, he said that we would reduce all the emissions in Australia. He had 3 opportunities to address the central failing of the carbon tax, and he deceived the Australian people. That's a very serious allegation. He had 3 chances to acknowledge that 100 million tonnes, or almost 2/3 of the emissions reduction, have to come from buying foreign carbon credits. Our real issue is the tax drives up electricity and gas and grocery prices. It hurts people, but it doesn't reduce emissions.
Greg Hunt, that was not my question, and I'm going to repeat it, and we are really running out of time now. My question was whether you wish or do not wish for this carbon tax to fail so spectacularly that it actually harms parts of the economy, as you are predicting that it will. Do you wish to see the failures of some parts of the economy in order to make your point?
No, we don't want to see a single job lost. What we saw this week was Coogee Chemicals say they will pull $1 billion investment in methanol. Instead, we'll see production in China where they use coal rather than gas to make methanol at 4 times the emissions. That's the proof that it's an environmental failure as well as an economic failure. Our concern about the tax is that it hurts pensioners and it hurts businesses. That's a disaster for people who want to invest in the long-term future of the economy.
All right.
And it's a catastrophe for people who care about reducing emissions because
yes, but
the Coogee chemical example shows emissions go up rather than down.
Sure, but Greg Hunt, the arguments go the other way as well, because some parts of business are actually accusing the opposition of creating uncertainty with your promise to rescind, and that investment decisions, closure for contracts are now going to be difficult because of that lack of bipartisanship. So are you comfortable with the part that you're playing in creating that uncertainty? And this is a direct observation from Michael Fraser at AGL Energy, saying that the uncertainty created by the opposition's opposition to this is actually difficult for business.
I think you'll find that the Business Council of Australia, the Australian Industry Group, have savaged the carbon tax because of the uncertainty it creates.
But what do you say to Michael Fraser of AGL Energy? Why don't you just directly address that particular and direct criticism of the opposition?
Sure, there are differing views across the business community, but the bulk of the community is against the carbon tax. We are entitled to seek a mandate from the Australian people. The Australian people are sovereign in this nation. They overwhelmingly reject the tax. We're upfront, we're clear. We'll take the proposal to the next election. We'll seek a mandate. That's what happens in a democracy. Not everybody always agrees, but we will seek the mandate of the people to repeal the tax because it doesn't do the job. It drives, emissions go up, money goes offshore, and it doesn't do the job, and that's why, if elected, we'll repeal the tax.
Greg Hunt, we'll have to let you go. Thanks so much for joining us today.
Thanks, Virginia.